As I mentioned to you in my introductory speech, I own 177 Nancy Drew books. That is a lie. I own 178 Nancy Drew books, now including the Nancy Drew cookbook, which I just received yesterday. I don't think many kids my age are fans of Nancy Drew, but if you're over the age of 40, you most likely grew up reading the Nancy Drew mystery stories. In fact, if you grew up in the 60s or 70s, the stories you read were most likely the revised versions, which are relatively different from the original books. From the original publication of The Secret of the Old Clock in 1930 to the revision in the late 1950s, significant changes were made to both the formatting of the Nancy Drew mystery stories and the character of Nancy Drew herself. This speech will give you examples of some of the many changes made between the original and revised versions. According to WritersDigest.com, many sources claim that the 1959 revisions were intended to modernize the series and remove racial stereotypes, but the main reason may have been financial, significantly shortening the books to save on printing costs. The original books were 25 chapters in length, revised to only 20. Physically, the revised books have a much thinner paper than the original, resulting in a significantly skinnier book, as shown here. The action scenes were shortened by removing a lot of the descriptive text, and the slang of the 1930s was made more modern. In most cases, in The Secret of the Old Clock and The Hidden Staircase, they kept the same basic plot, but changed character names and added or removed characters. The book The Mystery at the Moss-Covered Mansion was also revised to The Mystery of the Moss-Covered Mansion, as shown. And the story was changed from stolen heirlooms to stolen missile parts at Cape Canaveral. Sorry about that. Even though it may not have been the main reason for a revision, the racial stereotypes and problematic language were changed, but often executed poorly. In the blog post, What I Learned from Reading All 56 of the Original Nancy Drew Mystery Stories, the author states that instead of denouncing the racism, the book simply removed any characters who were not white. Sorry. The 1930 version of Secret of the Old Clock has a character named Jeff Tucker, a black caretaker who is treated poorly by both Nancy and the police. In the revised version, Jeff Tucker is now white and is treated very well. In the original Hidden Staircase, the villain has a black housekeeper who assists him in his crimes. The revised version removes her altogether and replaces her with a variety of henchmen. The article, The Not So Hidden Racism of Nancy Drew, stresses that the revisions are emblematic of how the publishers chose to deal with the racism of the original text. Simple erasure. The Nancy Drew books have a lot of problems with other stereotypes. If you're dressed sloppily, had a scar, or shifty eyes, you're most likely going to be the villain of the story. What about Nancy Drew herself? Nancy Drew is a teenage detective who lives in the fictional town of River Heights, location unknown. In the original books, she was 16 years old, but was aged up to 18 in the revisions. Her father is Carson Drew, a famous lawyer. They have a housekeeper, Hannah Gruen, who was like a substitute mother to Nancy since her own mother passed away when she was young. The original books had her passing when Nancy was about 10, but it was later changed to 3 years old. They changed her car from a roadster to a blue convertible, and even her hair color was changed from golden blonde to reddish blonde. In the article, The Riddle of the Revised Novels Nancy Drew in Depression and the Cold War, the author describes major changes in Nancy's personality. Nancy went from an independent and self-sufficient girl who trespassed all around her county alone in her roadster to solving crimes with the help of others. She would even have no trouble in lying to policemen, but would later keep them informed of her actions every step of the way. Even Nancy's friends weren't spared. Nancy's first friend, Helen Corning, despite her being a close friend, she was rarely included in Nancy's adventures. She was later discarded, but brought back in the revised books. She now took an active part in helping to solve the mysteries. Almost immediately, she became engaged and got married. She would appear in few of the later books, but at a greatly reduced role. Helen was replaced by cousins George Fane and Bess Marvin. In the original The Secret of Shadow Ranch, there was an entire plot point about a farmhand named George who hated the fact that there was a girl named George. This was scrapped in the revised book. Bess was called by her full name Elizabeth in one chapter of one book and was never called Elizabeth again. I could speak for hours on the different editions of Nancy Drew books, such as Tweed, Cameo, Wartime, plus like blue and orange, Book Club, Library, Flashlight, Matte, British, 2-in-1, audiobook, and whatever this one is. I honestly don't know. Where did I put that paper? There it is. Ha ha ha. As you can see, from the original publication of The Secret of the Old Clock in 1930 to the revisions in the late 1950s, significant changes were made to the formatting of the Nancy Drew mystery stories. People of color were erased, the language was modernized, and the changes were made to the character of Nancy Drew and her friends. If you have never read a Nancy Drew book before, I encourage you to go to the library and check one out.